The great chamber of the Galactic Council was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Jiho Park stood in the center of the room, watching as hundreds of alien faces stared down at him. Their eyes were cold. Some looked angry. Others looked disgusted. Admiral Thexvar of the Velkan Empire rose from his seat. He was tall, even for his species. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber lights. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the room. "Humans," he said, making the words sound dirty, "you have broken the sacred law. The doctrine of containment has kept peace in this galaxy for 300 years. Young species must stay in their home systems until they are ready, until they are mature enough to join us properly." Jiho kept his face blank. He had expected this. Earth knew this day would come when they built those colonies, 3 worlds beyond the Sol system. 3 beautiful worlds where humans could live and grow. Dr. Mina Lee sat in the human section. She was Earth's best diplomat, but even she looked worried. The vote was coming. Everyone knew what it would be. "The evidence is clear," Thexvar continued. He pressed a button and images appeared in the air above them. Kepler 442b, Proxima Centauri C, Wolf 359b. All of these worlds now have human settlements, all built without permission from this council. The images showed green fields and small cities, human children playing in alien sunlight, farms growing food under strange colored skies. It looked peaceful. It looked like hope. "The penalty for unauthorized expansion is clear," the Velkan Admiral said. "Species sterilization. Complete destruction of all military capability. Your colonies will be destroyed. Your homeworld will be stripped of all weapons. You will never leave your system again." A murmur went through the chamber. Some aliens nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. "You have 30 standard cycles to comply," Thexvar announced. "Surrender your colonies. Allow us to destroy your military installations. Submit to orbital bombardment of all defensive systems. Do this, and your species may continue to exist in your home system." The vote began. Mina watched the numbers appear on her screen. 847 votes in favor, only 3 against. The Etherians voted no, as expected. They never liked violence. The Christek Confederation also voted no. They stayed neutral in everything. But the third vote surprised everyone. The Bruthari had voted against the ultimatum. As the session ended, the chamber began to empty. Aliens filed out in small groups, talking quietly among themselves. Most avoided looking at the humans. A heavy footstep made Mina look up. War Chief Gromax of the Bruthari stood beside her. He was massive, even sitting down. His people were warriors, known throughout the galaxy for their strength and honor in battle. "Dr. Lee," he said in his deep voice, "walk with me." They moved to a quiet corner of the chamber. Gromax looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Your species is young," he said, "but not stupid. The Velkans think they know you. They think you will break like the others." "What do you mean?" Mina asked. 47 species have faced this ultimatum, Gromax explained. All 47 surrendered. They gave up their colonies. They accepted containment. They chose to live as prisoners rather than fight. He leaned closer. "The Velkans expect the same from you. They send only their second fleet, 300 ships. They think this will be enough." Mina's heart sank. 300 ships. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 50 vessels. Old ships, built for patrol duty and small conflicts, not for war against a galactic empire. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Gromax's mandibles clicked. Among his people, that meant amusement or respect. "Because your Captain Park did something interesting today," he said. When Admiral Thexvar announced the penalty, most species beg, they cry, they promise to do better. Your captain just stood there, like he was listening to a weather report. It was true. Jiho had shown no fear at all. And when they announced the 30-cycle deadline, Gromax continued, your captain smiled. Just a little. Most people missed it, but warriors recognize other warriors. The war chief stood to leave. My people have a saying, Dr. Lee. Beware the enemy who smiles when you threaten him. The Velkans have never fought a species that grins when they bleed. He walked away, leaving Mina alone with her thoughts. 3 hours later, the human delegation met in their ship. It was a small vessel, meant for diplomacy, not war. Captain Jiho sat at the head of the table. Dr. Mina Lee and their small staff filled the other seats. Options? Jiho asked simply. We could surrender, offered Dr. Kim, their legal advisor. Accept the terms, keep humanity alive even if we can never leave Sol again. That's not living, said Commander Suyon Nam, their military attaché. That's existing, like animals in a cage. Better than extinction, Dr. Kim replied. Jiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he activated his personal communicator. It was a special one using quantum entanglement technology. The Velkans wouldn't be able to detect or block it. Admiral Kim, he said into the device. This is Captain Park. Authorization code Omega 77. Confirm status of all fleet elements. A voice crackled back. Captain Park, this is Admiral Taewon Kim. All elements report ready. Defensive positions established around Seoul. We are prepared for whatever comes next. Understood, Admiral. Execute Protocol 7. Make them think we're helpless. Copy that. Captain, Admiral Kim out. Jiho closed the communicator and looked at his team. Dr. Lee, send our response to the Galactic Council. What should I tell them? Mina asked. Tell them that humanity appreciates their concern for galactic stability, Jiho said, his voice calm. Tell them we will consider their ultimatum carefully. Tell them we value peace above all else. Dr. Kim looked confused. But that sounds like we're going to surrender? That's exactly how it should sound, Jiho replied. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars filled the dark space. Somewhere out there, human colonies were building new lives. Somewhere out there, the Velkan Second Fleet was preparing for war. The Velkans think they know us, he said, quietly. They think we're just another young species that will roll over when threatened. They're about to learn something important about humanity. What's that? Mina asked. Captain Jiho Park smiled. It was not a nice smile. They're about to learn that we've been preparing for this day since we first left Earth, and they have no idea what they're walking into. 29 days later, space around the edge of the Sol system rippled like water. Ships began to appear, big ships, dangerous ships. The Velkan Second Fleet had arrived. Fleet Commander Zethkol stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. He was smaller than Admiral Thexvar, but just as proud. Through the view screen, he could see the human home system spread out before him. A yellow star with several planets. The third planet was blue and green. Earth, home to 8 billion humans, who were about to learn their place in the galaxy. Report, he ordered. His tactical officer checked her screens. Sir, we count 51 human vessels in defensive positions around their home world. Most are small patrol craft, a few destroyers, one large ship that might be their flagship. Zethkol nodded. 51 ships against 300. This would be over quickly. Open a channel to the human fleet, he said. The main screen changed to show a bridge. A human in a dark blue uniform sat in the captain's chair. His name appeared at the bottom of the screen. Admiral Taewon Kim, Terran Defense Fleet. Admiral Kim, Zethkol said. I am Fleet Commander Zethkol of the Velkan Empire. You know why we are here. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Kim looked tired. His hair was gray and his face was lined with worry. He spoke in a quiet voice. Commander Zethkol, I am Admiral Taewon Kim. I have orders from Earth Command to defend this system. I will not surrender." "Then you will die," Zethkol replied. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human fleet." The Velkan ships moved forward, like a deadly cloud, their weapons charged with blue energy. They had done this many times before. Young species always thought they could fight. They were always wrong. Admiral Kim's voice came across all frequencies. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. You know what to do. Make them remember us." The battle began. Captain Seojin Oh commanded the destroyer Indomitable. His ship was old and small, but his crew was ready. When 3 Velkan cruisers targeted him, he did something they didn't expect. Instead of running, he turned toward them. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Ram the lead ship." "Sir?" his first officer asked. "You heard me? Full speed ahead." The Indomitable smashed into the Velkan cruiser at full acceleration. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and metal, but the other 2 Velkan ships were damaged by the debris. Captain Hiran Choi of the Stalwart saw 6 enemy destroyers surrounding her ship. Her weapons were destroyed and her shields were failing. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered. But she stayed on the bridge. When the last escape pod was away, she did something the Velkans had never seen before. "Computer, set fusion core to overload. 60 seconds." She steered her ship into the middle of the Velkan formation. When the Stalwart exploded, it took 12 enemy ships with it. All across the battlefield, human ships fought like cornered animals. They rammed enemy vessels. They set off their own reactors as weapons. They never asked for quarter, and they never surrendered. But numbers don't lie. One by one, the human ships fell. After 6 hours of fighting, only 2 were left. Admiral Kim's flagship Retribution and a small corvette called Mosquito. Captain Do-hyun Yoon commanded the Mosquito. His ship was tiny compared to the Velkan dreadnoughts that surrounded him. But he kept fighting. His crew fired every weapon they had until the guns overheated. When their missiles were gone, they used the ship's mining lasers. Commander Zethkol watched the last 2 human ships on his screen. They were outnumbered 300 to 2. Their weapons were almost gone. Their shields were failing. It was over. "Human Admiral," he called. "You have fought bravely, but this is finished. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Admiral Kim appeared on the screen again. His uniform was torn, and there was blood on his face. But he was smiling. Actually smiling. "Commander Zethkol," he said, "you think you've won? You've destroyed 1 fleet. Did you really think this was all we had?" Zethkol frowned. "What are you talking about?" Admiral Kim touched something on his control panel. A new kind of communication device, something the Velkans had never seen before. "Authorization Omega 77, Kim said into the device. "All fleets converge on Seoul. Time to show them what humanity really looks like when we're angry." At first, nothing happened. Then Zethakol's sensor officer made a sound of surprise. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking, "I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures, multiple contacts, very large contacts." "How many?" Zethkol demanded. I'm not sure, sir. At least 200 ships, maybe more. They're still coming out of hyperspace." On the view screen, space began to ripple again. But this time, it was human ships that appeared. Big ships, new ships, ships that looked nothing like the small patrol craft they had just destroyed. The first ship to emerge was enormous, bigger than any Velkan dreadnought. Its hull was dark gray and covered with weapon ports. The name on its side read, "Vengeful Dawn." A new voice came over the communications, strong and angry. "Attention, Velkan forces. This is Admiral Sun Woo Kang of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. You are now surrounded by the full might of the Terran. Federation Navy, I'm here to collect payment for every human life you've taken." More ships kept appearing, hundreds of them. They formed up in perfect battle formation around the Velkan fleet. Zethkol's tactical officer was almost crying. "Sir, long-range sensors detect 9 more fleet signatures incoming. Estimated total, over 3,000 vessels. Impossible, Zethkol whispered. Intelligence said they had maybe 200 ships total. Admiral Kim's voice came through the speakers one last time. Commander Zethkol, let me explain something about humans. We don't just prepare for the war we're fighting. We prepare for the war we might have to fight someday. Every ship you just destroyed was built to look like our main fleet. Our real Navy has been hiding in deep space for 50 years, waiting for someone like you to threaten our home. Another fleet appeared near Saturn, then another near Mars. Each one had hundreds of ships. Admiral Kong's voice cut through the chaos. Vulcan fleet, you have 60 seconds to surrender. After that, we start shooting. And when we start shooting, we don't stop until everything is dead. Commander Zethkol looked at his screens. 300 Vulcan ships, surrounded by thousands of human vessels. Ships that were bigger, newer, and looked ready for war. For the first time in his life, the Vulcan commander felt real fear. Sir? His weapons officer asked. Orders? Zethkol opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He had come here to destroy a helpless species. Instead, he had flown into the biggest trap in galactic history. On the vengeful dawn, Admiral Sunwoo Kang waited for an answer. Behind him, Colonel Yuna Nam of the 1st Strike Regiment was grinning. Sir, she said, should we tell them about the other 7 fleets? Not yet, Colonel, Admiral Kang replied. Let them think about it for a minute. In space around them, 3,000 human warships powered up their weapons and waited for the order to fire. Commander Zethkol stared at his tactical display and felt sick. Red dots surrounded his fleet, hundreds of them. Each dot was a human warship, and they were all pointing weapons at his ships. How is this possible? He whispered. His intelligence officer was frantically checking her reports. Sir, all our data said the humans had limited industrial capacity. Small shipyards, minimal military production. Then where did these ships come from? Zethkol demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. A new face appeared on his communication screen. It was a human woman in a white lab coat. She looked young and harmless. Her name tag read, Dr. Yejin Seo, xenobiologist. Hello, Commander Zethkol, she said with a pleasant smile. I believe I can answer that question. Who are you? Zethkol asked. Dr. Yejin Seo. I've been studying Vulcan culture for the past 6 years. Fascinating people, really. Very organized. Very predictable. Zethkol felt confused. You're a scientist. What do you know about military matters? Dr. Seo's smile got wider. Oh, Commander, you still don't understand, do you? Let me explain. Something about humans. We don't separate our scientists from our military. We don't separate our civilians from our soldiers. When we fight, we all fight. She gestured to something off-screen. You see, while I was studying your people, I was also reporting everything, back to Earth. Your ship designs, your battle tactics, your weaknesses. Did you know that Vulcan armor is weak at the joint connections? Very useful information. Zethkol's blood went cold. You're a spy. I'm a scientist, Dr. Seo corrected. But yes, I'm also a spy. So is Dr. Park, who studied your weapons technology, and Dr. Nam, who mapped your supply routes, and about 40 other harmless human researchers scattered across Vulcan space. On the bridge of the vengeful dawn, Admiral Sunwoo Kang watched more human fleets arrive. The 2nd Expeditionary Fleet, commanded by Admiral Boram Shin, dropped out of hyperspace, near Saturn. 300 more ships added to the growing force around the trapped Vulcans. Sir, reported Captain Jemin Wu of the destroyer Hornet. The 3rd Fleet just arrived near Mars. Admiral Kyungmin Park sends his regards. Admiral Kang nodded. Signal all fleet commanders. Maintain formation but do not fire unless fired upon. Let them see what they're facing. The Vulcan fleet was now completely surrounded. Every direction they looked, human ships waited. Big ships with heavy armor and massive guns. Fast ships that darted between the larger vessels like hunting sharks. Even the smallest human ship was bigger than anything in the Velkan defensive force they had just destroyed. Commander Zethkol tried to make sense of it all. Our intelligence was completely wrong. How did you hide all this? Dr. Seo was still on the screen, still smiling. That's the thing about intelligence, Commander. You can only find what you're looking for. Your spies came to Sol and saw our main fleet. 50 old ships for system defense. They saw our major shipyards, small facilities building patrol craft and civilian vessels. She paused to let that sink in. But they never looked for the deep space construction yards. They never found the hidden bases in asteroid fields. They never discovered our military shipyards in the outer systems of distant stars. More information appeared on the Velkan screens. Locations throughout human space that intelligence had missed. Massive industrial complexes built inside hollowed-out moons. Shipyards disguised as mining operations. Military bases hidden in nebulae and dark matter clouds. You've been building for decades, Zethkol realized. Longer than that, Dr. Seo confirmed. We started preparing the day we learned we weren't alone in the galaxy. Every human colony, every research station, every civilian outpost was built with defense in mind. We knew that someday someone would come to destroy us. We decided to be ready. The 4th fleet arrived near Jupiter, then the 5th near Venus. Each fleet was fresh, well-armed, and eager for battle. The ships looked different from each other, suggesting they came from different shipyards and different design philosophies. But they all shared one thing. They looked dangerous. Captain Sora Kim of the stealth frigate Ghostwalker was running silent near the edge of Velkan Formation. Her ship was invisible to their sensors, watching and listening. She reported back to Admiral Kang through quantum communication. "Sir, the Velkans are starting to panic. I'm hearing chatter about withdrawal options. Some of their captains want to surrender." "Any sign of the other Velkan fleets?" Admiral Kang asked. "Negative, sir. Long-range scans show no reinforcements coming. They really did send only their 2nd fleet." Admiral Kang shook his head. The arrogance was stunning. The Velkans had come to destroy humanity with less than 1/10 of their total military strength. They had assumed humans would be weak, frightened, and easy to defeat. On his tactical display, Admiral Kang could see the 6th and 7th fleets approaching. Soon, there would be over 4,000 human ships in the Sol system. All of them armed. All of them angry. Commander Zethkol was studying his options. All of them were bad. His ships were built for fighting small defense forces and lightly armed patrol craft. They weren't designed for this kind of battle. The human ships looked newer, bigger, and better armed than anything the Velkans had ever faced. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "I'm analyzing the human fleet composition. These aren't just patrol ships and converted civilians. These are purpose-built warships, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, carriers, destroyers, frigates, and types I don't recognize." "How many different classes?" Zethkol asked. "At least 50 different designs, sir. Maybe more. It's like they've been experimenting with new ship types for decades. That was exactly what they had been doing. Each human colony had developed its own shipbuilding techniques. Each fleet represented different ideas about space warfare. Some focused on heavy armor and big guns. Others used speed and stealth. Still others carried swarms of small fighters. But they all had one thing in common. They had been designed to kill alien invaders. Dr. Seo was still talking on the communication channel. "You know what the funny thing is, Commander? Your people always talk about how young and inexperienced humans are. But we've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know about strategy and tactics and logistics. We just applied those skills to space combat." The 8th fleet arrived, then the 9th. Each one added hundreds more ships to the growing human armada. "This is impossible," Zethkol said. "No species builds fleets this large in secret." "Most species don't," Dr. Seo agreed. "Most species wait for permission before they expand. They follow the rules. They trust the Galactic Council to protect." them. Humans don't trust anyone to protect us except ourselves. On the vengeful dawn, Colonel Yuna Nam was watching the tactical display with professional interest. "Sir, the Velkans are trapped, but they haven't surrendered yet. Should we give them another demonstration?" Admiral Kang considered it. "Signal the 10th Fleet. Time to make an appearance." A new group of ships emerged from hyperspace. But these weren't warships. They were enormous vessels, each one the size of a space station. Construction ships, mobile shipyards, floating factories that could build new warships in deep space. "Dear God," whispered Zeth Cole's engineering officer. "They can manufacture ships anywhere. They don't need fixed shipyards or supply lines. Their fleet can grow while they fight." Commander Zeth Cole finally understood the trap he had flown into. This wasn't just a military defeat. This was a complete intelligence failure. Everything the Velkans thought they knew about humans was wrong. "Doctor," SEO's voice came through the speakers one more time. "Commander, you came here to exterminate a young species that had gotten too big for its britches. But we're not young anymore. We've been preparing for this war since before your grandparents were born. The only question now is whether you're smart enough to surrender before we show you what our weapons can really do." The communication ended. Around the Velkan fleet, 10,000 human warships waited for an answer. Commander Zeth Cole made his choice. It was the wrong choice. All ships, emergency acceleration, break through their lines and escape to hyperspace. The Velkan fleet tried to run. They powered up their engines and charged toward what looked like the weakest part of the human formation. 300 ships moving at full speed, hoping to punch through before the humans could react. They lasted exactly 4 minutes. Admiral Sun Woo Kang had been expecting this. "All fleets, execute Pattern 7. Show them why running is a bad idea." The human response was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. Ships that had seemed scattered suddenly moved into precise formations. What looked like chaos revealed itself as careful planning. Captain Jamin Wu of the destroyer, Hornet led his squadron in what appeared to be a suicidal charge straight at the Velkan formation. At the last second, his ships split apart like an opening flower. Half went high, half went low, and suddenly the Velkans found themselves surrounded by small, fast ships, firing torpedoes at point-blank range. "How are they moving like that?" demanded Zeth Cole. His own ships were still trying to form up into proper battle lines. The answer came from his sensor operator. "Sir, the human ships aren't following standard combat protocols. They're moving like a flock of birds. Each ship seems to know what every other ship is doing." Captain Sora Kim of the stealth frigate Ghostwalker demonstrated exactly that. Her ship appeared inside the Velkan formation, seemingly out of nowhere. She fired a full spread of missiles into the engine section of a Velkan cruiser, then vanished, again before return fire could lock onto her position. "Where did she go?" Zeth Cole shouted. "Unknown, sir. She's not on sensors anymore." Captain Sora was already positioning herself for another attack. Her ship used technology the Velkans had, never seen before, advanced stealth systems that could fool any known sensor array. She appeared behind another Velkan ship, delivered a crippling strike to its weapon systems, and disappeared again. The Velkans were fighting an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't predict, and couldn't understand. But the worst surprise was yet to come. Admiral Min-jae Lee commanded the home defense fleet. His ships had been orbiting Earth, disguised as civilian space stations and cargo platforms. When the battle started, they revealed their true nature. "All orbital platforms, drop the masks," he ordered. What the Velkans had thought were harmless civilian structures suddenly bristled with weapons. Massive railguns emerged from hidden compartments. Missile batteries unfolded from fake cargo. Sections, shield generators powered up with the distinctive hum of military-grade equipment. "Sir," screamed Zeth Cole's tactical officer, "the orbital stations around Earth, they're not stations. They're weapons platforms, planet killer class. Weapons!" The first shot came from the platform designated Peacekeeper. It was a rail gun the size of a city block, firing a projectile at 5% of light speed. The tungsten rod hit a Velkan dreadnought dead center and punched completely through it. The ship simply fell apart. "How many platforms?" Zethkol asked, though he was afraid of the answer. 47 confirmed weapons platforms, sir, and they're all targeting our ships." The Velkan vanguard was obliterated in minutes. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles were torn apart by weapons they had never imagined. The humans weren't just defending their planet. They had turned their entire home system into a fortress. Commander Zethkol realized with growing horror that every assumption about human military capability had been wrong. These weren't the desperate actions of a cornered species. This was the careful implementation of a plan that had been decades in the making. Captain Seunghwan O of the battle cruiser Thunder showed just how carefully planned it was. His ship moved through the Velkan formation like a knife through cloth. Every shot hit exactly where it was supposed to hit. Every maneuver put his ship in exactly the right position. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "target analysis complete. Velkan armor is weak at the joint connections, just like Dr. Seo's. Intelligence reports said, we're hitting every weak point." "Good," Captain O replied. "Make sure every ship in the fleet gets the targeting data. Let's finish this quickly." The human fleets moved like a machine built for killing. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood the plan. They had trained for this battle for years, running simulations and war games until every possible scenario had been practiced. The Velkans, meanwhile, were falling apart. Their formation broke down as ships tried to escape, in different directions. Some captains wanted to fight, others wanted to surrender. A few were trying to send distress calls to the Velkan Empire. None of their communications got through. The humans were jamming everything except their own quantum communication networks. Captain Do-Yun Yoon, who had survived the initial battle, in his corvette Mosquito, was now leading a group of small ships in hit-and-run attacks. His tiny vessel danced between Velkan cruisers, firing bursts from its plasma cannons and then disappearing into the chaos. "This is like hunting whales with minnows," he told his crew. "Stay small, stay fast, and keep stinging them." His tactics worked. The Velkan ships were designed to fight other capital ships in formal battle lines. They couldn't handle swarms of small, fast attackers that appeared and disappeared without warning. Admiral Boram Shin of the 2nd Expeditionary Fleet was coordinating the larger ships. Her dreadnoughts formed the anvil, while the smaller ships acted as hammers, driving the Velkans into killing zones where the big guns could finish them off. "Admiral Kang," she reported, "Velkan fleet cohesion is breaking down. Estimate 60% casualties and climbing. Recommend we offer surrender terms." "Negative," Admiral Kang replied. "They came here to exterminate us. Let them see what extermination really looks like." The battle was no longer a battle. It was an execution. Velkan ships tried to surrender, but the humans weren't accepting surrenders. They had come too far and lost too many friends in the opening. "Fight to show mercy now." Commander Zethkol watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had served the Empire for decades were being picked apart by human weapons. His officers were crying. His crew was praying to gods he had never heard of. "Sir," his communications officer said through tears, "the humans are broadcasting something. Put it on speakers," Zethkol ordered. Admiral Kang's voice filled the Velkan bridge. "Commander Zethkol, this is Admiral Kang. You came to our home to murder our children. You came to destroy our colonies and enslave our people. Did you think we would just let you do it?" The sounds of battle continued in the background. Explosions, weapons fire, the death screams of Velkan ships. "You want to know why we're not accepting surrenders?" Admiral Kang continued. "Because surrender implies that this was a fair fight. This wasn't a fight. This was pest control. You're an infestation that needs to be cleaned out." More Velkan ships died. The human fleets were methodical, efficient, and utterly ruthless. They targeted weapons first, then engines, then life support. They made sure every Velkan ship was completely helpless before they moved on to the next target. "Please," Zethkol called over the radio. "We surrender. We yield. End this slaughter." "Too late for that," Admiral Kang replied. "You should have thought about surrender before you threatened to sterilize our species. Now you get to learn what happens when humans decide you're a threat that needs to be eliminated." The last Velkin ship, Commander Zethkol's flagship, was surrounded by a dozen human vessels. They could have destroyed it instantly. Instead, they waited. "Commander," Admiral Kang said, "I'm going to let you live. Just you. I want you to go back to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist. Tell them that we're not hiding anymore." A small human ship approached the Velkin flagship. It latched onto the hull and began cutting through the armor with industrial lasers. "What are they doing?" Zethkol whispered. "They're boarding us, sir," his security chief reported. "Should we resist?" Before Zethkol could answer, human soldiers were on his bridge. They wore power armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their leader removed her helmet, revealing the face of Colonel Unanam. "Commander Zethkol," she said politely, "you're coming with us. You have a message to deliver." The news reached the Galactic Council within 6 hours. It should have been impossible. The communication networks between the Sol system and the galactic core normally took days to carry messages. But somehow, the humans had found a way to send information instantly across vast distances. Admiral Thexvar of the Velkin Empire stood before the emergency session of the Council. His blue skin looked pale. His hands shook as he read the report. "The Second Fleet is gone," he announced. "All 300 ships. Total annihilation." A murmur went through the chamber. Species that had been part of the Council for thousands of years had never heard of an entire fleet being destroyed so completely. "How?" demanded Councillor Vexitar of the hegemony of Taos. "Your intelligence said the humans had 50 ships at most." "Our intelligence was wrong," Admiral Thexvar admitted. "The humans have been lying to us for decades. They've built a military force larger than anything we imagined possible." He activated a holographic display that showed the battle. Council members watched in shocked silence as human fleets appeared from nowhere. Ship after ship, fleet after fleet, until the space around Earth was filled with thousands of warships. "This is impossible," whispered Councillor Zalseth of the Etherian Unity. "No young species has this kind of industrial capacity." "The humans aren't young anymore," Admiral Thexvar replied bitterly. "They've been preparing for war while we thought they were playing with toys." The hologram showed the battle itself. Council members watched Velkin ships, veterans of dozens of conflicts, being torn apart by human weapons. They saw tactics and strategies that shouldn't exist. They watched a military machine that operated with perfect coordination across thousands of ships. "What kind of weapons are they using?" asked Councillor Mordak of the Bruthari. Unlike the others, he sounded impressed rather than frightened. "We don't know," Admiral Thexvar answered. "Our ship's computers recorded weapon signatures we've never seen before. Energy types that our scientists say shouldn't exist. Materials. Science that's decades ahead of our own." The hologram showed human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts. It showed weapons that fired faster than light. It showed armor that absorbed direct hits from planet-killer weapons and kept fighting. 3 days later, President Yunha Cho of the Terran Federation addressed the Galactic Council. She wasn't asking for permission. She was informing them of new realities. She walked into the chamber flanked by 2 humans in military uniforms. Admiral Wu Jin Han commanded something called the 10th Fleet. General Ji-Hoon Ro led what they called Special Operations Division. Both men looked calm and confident, like they were attending a business meeting rather than facing the combined governments of the galaxy. "Honored counselors," President Cho began, "you seem surprised by recent events. I'm here to clear up some misunderstandings." She gestured and a holographic display appeared. It showed star maps that made several council members gasp. Red dots marked human settlements throughout a huge section of the galaxy. "First misunderstanding," President Cho continued, You believed humans were confined to the Sol system. As you can see, we currently maintain research outposts on 473 worlds, permanent settlements on 86 worlds, and full terraforming operations on 12 worlds. Counselor Thexvar stood up angrily. This is a violation of every law of expansion. The doctrine of containment specifically forbids. The doctrine of containment, President Cho interrupted, is hereby null and void. My government no longer recognizes the authority of this council to dictate where humans may or may not live. Silence fell over the chamber. In 3,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever directly challenged the council's authority like this. Second misunderstanding, President Cho continued. You believed our military was small and primitive. Admiral Han, would you like to explain our actual capabilities? Admiral Woojin Han stepped forward. He looked like a grandfather with gray hair and kind eyes. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. That made his words even more terrifying. Force that destroyed the Velkin Second Fleet represents approximately 15% of our total military capacity, he said casually. We currently maintain 18 operational fleets, totaling just over 12,000 combat vessels. This does not include our civilian defense forces, our colonial militias, or our special operations assets. General Ji-hoon Ro added, My people have been operating covertly throughout Velkin space for the past 15 years. We know the location of every major military base, every shipyard, and every command center. We also have similar intelligence on 47 other species that might pose a threat to human expansion. The implications hit the council like a hammer blow. The humans hadn't just built a secret navy. They had been conducting secret intelligence operations throughout the galaxy. They knew things that could destroy governments and topple empires. This is an act of war against the entire galactic community, declared Counselor Vextar. President Cho smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Counselor Vextar, I'm afraid you're confused about who declared war on whom. The Galactic Council voted to exterminate my species. You sent a fleet to destroy our colonies and sterilize our home world. That was your declaration of war, not ours. She paused to let that sink in. We're simply responding appropriately. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Appropriately. Indeed. Everyone turned to see War Chief Gromax of the Bruthari. The massive warrior was grinning, showing rows of sharp teeth. For 3 centuries, this council has kept the galaxy in chains, he said. Young species locked in their home systems. Expansion controlled by bureaucrats and cowards. The humans have done what needed to be done for generations. Other voices began to murmur agreement. Species that had been denied expansion rights for centuries. Civilizations that had been forced to watch their populations outgrow their home. Systems while the council debated whether they were mature enough for new worlds. President Cho recognized the moment. My government proposes a new doctrine to replace the failed doctrine of containment. The Terran doctrine states simply, any species capable of interstellar travel possesses the inherent right to expand, explore, and establish colonies as they see fit. Preposterous, shouted Admiral Thexvar. Without containment, there will be chaos, wars over territory, conflicts between expanding species. As opposed to the peaceful galaxy we have now, President Cho asked dryly. The one where you just tried to commit genocide against my people. Ambassador Haeun Lim, who had been quietly sitting in the human section, now stood up. President Cho, if I may. President Cho nodded. Counselors, my name is Ambassador Haeun Lim. For the past 5 years, I have been building relationships with species throughout the galaxy. Species that have been denied their basic rights by this council. I'm pleased to announce that 43 civilizations have already agreed to support the Terran doctrine. The chamber erupted in chaos. 43 species represented nearly a quarter of the galactic community. If they all supported human expansion rights, the old system of control was finished. Admiral Woojin Han waited for the noise to die down, then spoke again. Counselors, let me be very clear about something. The Terran Federation is not asking for your permission to exist. We are not requesting your approval for our expansion. We are informing you of the new reality." He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the true extent of human military might. Fleets spread across dozens of star systems, shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, military bases that had been operating in secret for decades. "The age of containment is over," Admiral Han continued. "Species will expand as they choose. They will settle new worlds as they see fit. They will determine their own destinies without interference from this council." President Cho stepped forward for her final statement. "To those species that choose to work with us, we offer friendship, trade, and mutual cooperation. To those that choose to threaten us or our allies," she smiled again, "I suggest you ask the Velkans how that worked out for them." The Velkan. Representative Commander Zethkol sat in his assigned seat with his head in his hands. He had been allowed to live specifically to deliver this message. Now he was watching his empire's authority crumble in real time. The vote on the Terran. "Doctrine will be held in 7 days," President Cho announced. "I strongly encourage all council members to consider their positions carefully. The galaxy is changing whether you approve or not. The only question is whether you'll be part of that change or whether you'll be left behind." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and counselors? The fleets you saw at Sol were just the ones we wanted you to see. We have 8 more fleets that remain hidden. Consider that as you cast your votes." The human delegation left the chamber. Behind them, the Galactic Council dissolved into chaos as 3,000 years of established order collapsed in a single afternoon. 6 months later, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Representatives from dozens of species that had never been allowed to speak before now sat in positions of honor. The old hierarchy was gone. In its place was something that actually looked like a council of equals. The vote on the Terran Doctrine had been unanimous. Even the Velkans had voted in favor, though they had little choice. Their empire was reduced to a single sector after their failed attempt to destroy humanity. Other major powers had quietly begun reducing their own territorial claims. Nobody wanted to test whether humanity's display of force at Sol was their full capability. Admiral Young-Ho Park commanded the first diplomatic fleet. His ships were smaller than the warships that had destroyed the Velkan Second Fleet, but they were still impressive. They carried diplomats and scientists instead of soldiers, but everyone knew they could carry soldiers if necessary. Standing beside him at the signing ceremony was Ambassador Heian Lim. Her secret alliance building had paid off spectacularly. What had started as 43 species supporting human expansion rights had grown to over 200. The majority of the galactic community now supported the right of any species to expand freely. "It's remarkable," Ambassador Lim said to Admiral Park as they watched the ceremony. 5 years ago, nobody would even listen when smaller species complained about containment. Now they're the ones writing the new laws. Admiral Park nodded. "Fear has a way of clarifying priorities. When the Council thought they could control expansion through force, they ignored peaceful protests. When they learned that force could be turned against them, suddenly they became very interested in compromise." The signing ceremony was led by President Yunha Cho, but she wasn't alone. Leaders from dozens of previously suppressed species stood with her. The Melodians of Vega, who had hidden from the Council for centuries, the Kelvin Republic, whose expansion rights had been denied for 50 years, the Osari Confederacy, who had been forced to watch their people suffer on overcrowded worlds, while empty planets sat forbidden just a few light years away. Fleet Admiral Daehyun Jeon, overall commander of the Terran Federation Navy, reviewed the strategic situation with President Cho after the ceremony. They met in a secure room aboard the diplomatic station that orbited the Council world. "Ma'am, the deterrent appears to be working," Admiral John reported. "No hostile fleet movements in any sector. The Velkans are keeping to their reduced territory. The Taos hegemony has actually begun offering trade agreements with human colonies. And our actual military strength? President Cho asked. Admiral John grinned. It was the same expression Captain Ji-ho Park had worn when facing the original ultimatum, 6 months ago. Still classified at Omega 77 clearance, but I can tell you this. The 18 fleets they know about represent roughly 30% of our total capability. The Seoul shipyards just launched our first batch of next-generation dreadnoughts. The Busan facility is producing a new class of stealth carriers, and the deep space yards at Wolf 359 are working on something that will make the Velkan defeat look like a minor skirmish. President Cho looked out through the viewport at the stars. Humanity had been tested by the greatest military powers in the galaxy, and they had not just survived, they had won decisively. The galaxy had learned that humans didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. What about the exploration fleets? She asked. Already deployed, Admiral John replied. Captain Sungwon, O of the deep reconnaissance ship Far Horizon, made first contact with 6 new species in the past month alone. All of them had been hiding from the Council, afraid to reveal themselves. That was the real victory. Humanity hadn't just broken the doctrine of containment for themselves. They had broken it for everyone. Species that had lived in fear for generations were now free to explore, expand, and claim their place among the stars. Captain Seungwon Oh was currently in the Vega system, having just completed first contact with the Melodians. They were a peaceful species that communicated through complex musical patterns. For 300 years, they had hidden on their homeworld, terrified that the Galactic Council would discover them and force them into the containment system. They're afraid, reported Lieutenant Chaeyoung-min, his communications officer. They think we're here to conquer them like the old powers did. Captain O smiled. Tell them we're here to offer them a choice. They can stay hidden if they want, or they can join us in changing how this galaxy works. Either way, no one will force them to do anything ever again. The Melodians chose to join. So did the Kelvin Republic. So did dozens of other species that had been suppressed for generations. The galaxy was experiencing the largest expansion of civilization in recorded history. Not everyone was happy about the changes. The Velkan Empire had lost most of its territory and all of its influence. Admiral Thexavar had been forced into retirement. Commander Zeth Cole spent his days writing reports that nobody read, trying to explain how the greatest military power in the galaxy had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. But their anger didn't matter anymore. The old system of control through fear was finished. In its place was something new. A galaxy where species could determine their own futures. In the deep archives of the Terran Federation, scientists and strategists were already planning the next phase. The Milky Way was just one galaxy among billions. Beyond the galactic rim, new challenges waited. New civilizations that might not be as reasonable as the old Galactic Council. Dr. Mina Lee, now serving as Director of Xenological Studies, was reviewing reports from the deep space exploration fleets. They had made contact with something at the edge of the galaxy. Something big. Something that made the old galactic powers look small and peaceful. Admiral John, she called over the secure communication system. You need to see this. The Far Horizon just sent a priority message from the galactic rim. They've detected massive structures. Artificial constructions the size of solar systems. And they're moving this way. Admiral John looked at the data and felt a familiar thrill. A new challenge, a new enemy, a new opportunity to prove that humanity was ready for whatever the universe could throw at them. Dr. Lee, he said, please send a message to all fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for expanded operations. It looks like our work isn't finished yet. He smiled as he watched the stars through his office window. Humanity had broken the chains that held them in their home system. They had shattered the power structure that kept young species from reaching their potential. They had proven that determination and preparation could overcome any odds. But most importantly, they had taught the galaxy a simple truth. When someone comes to destroy you, the best defense is to make sure they never get the chance to try again. The age of human expansion had begun, and the universe was about to learn what that really meant. In the Vega system, Captain Seung-Hwan Oh received new orders: expand the exploration grid, make contact with more hidden civilizations, find out what was happening at the Galactic Rim. He looked at his crew and saw the same expression he had seen 6 months ago when Admiral Kim faced the Velkan ultimatum: determination, confidence, the absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would be ready for them. "Helm," he ordered. "Set course for the rim. Maximum speed. Let's go see what's out there." The far horizon jumped to hyperspace, carrying the human flag toward unknown dangers and unlimited possibilities. Behind them, a transformed galaxy continued its work of building a better future for all species. And in the depths of space, hidden shipyards continued building new fleets for the challenges that lay ahead. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all: the price of freedom is eternal preparedness, and they intended to stay free no matter what the cost.